So today we're going to be talking about the parallels between Black women in the workplace and societal expectations and what that looks like. So we're going to be talking about the Black women employees life cycle, and then we're also going to be talking about ways that it really looks like in real life. Okay, so you can understand how that might relate to you. And as you know, on my YouTube channel, I'd like to talk about experiences that relate to so many of us as Black women, particularly in toxic work environments. So I just want to say you are not alone, sis. If you are in a toxic job, you are not alone, sis. If you are disgusted about this election result, you are not alone. Okay, you're in the right place. So if you don't know me already, I'm Dr. Kimani. I'm a licensed clinical psychologist, a toxic job survivor, but more importantly, I'm a toxic job liberator for Black women. And I'm excited to have two guests today. So I'm going to turn it over to Prill to introduce herself, and then we will have our special guest who has not been on our channel already. So we're going to turn it over to her as well, Marissiko. Okay, Prill, if you can introduce yourself, please.
All right. Hey, I am Prill. I'm known on my corner of the internet and YouTube as Positively Prill. I am a former type A plus personality. I too am a toxic job survivor. I was not burnt out. I was burnt up. And now, thanks to this amazing community of Black women called Exodus Summit, some self-work that I have done, I am in my beautiful home in beautiful San Miguel de Allende, living a liberated life where I am the center. My joy is prioritized, and I am confidently just keeping my barriers and my boundaries intact. I'm honoring the promises that I made to myself. Yes.
Yeah. And I appreciate you said that, because we're going to be talking about that too, about boundaries for us as Black women, because we often get pulled into certain things. Oh, we need you to come save this. We need you to do that. No, we're not doing it anymore. We're saving ourselves. We're prioritizing ourselves. We're choosing ourselves, and we're centering our joy and our health as well. So Marissiko, if you could introduce yourself, please.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm Dr. Marissiko Wheaton-Greer of Greer Consulting. I also work at a nonprofit serving as Director of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. I do have a higher education background. Most of my experience has been working at colleges and universities, but I've always worked in the DEI space. And I'm also a toxic work survivor. You know, I think many of us are, but thankfully, you know, I am in a place now that I really enjoy, but a lot of the work that I do with my consulting firm, my husband and I, we do a lot of work with organizations, helping them to create better environments and better spaces for folks. So working closely with leadership to ensure that they are being as inclusive as possible, as intentional as possible to avoid the toxicity that many of us Black women do face. So thank you so much for having me here.
Yes. Well, thank you for accepting my invitation. So I saw what you posted on LinkedIn, and I reached out to you and invited you. And so I'm so happy that you're here. So it's so interesting that when we introduce ourselves, that I would say the vast majority of Black women that I know have had at least one toxic job. Unfortunately, they've had multiple. So it's a very common experience. But because we generally don't talk about it a lot, we often think we're alone. We think there's something wrong with us. If we go from one toxic job to the next, we think, well, I'm the common denominator. There must be something wrong with me. And so I just want to encourage all of us. Yeah, self-reflection is important. Self-assessment is important. But more than likely, it's issues of racism and sexism that's permeating all of our systems. And so we keep going into these toxic jobs, and we're often put in a position of save me. And then we go into this like superwoman mode of like, oh, I got this. Oh, they must think these great things about me. And they kind of use you up, and then they kind of throw you out. And so, again, I think a lot of Black women experience this. So, Marissiko, when I saw your graphic, and I'm going to share the screen so everyone can see this. When I saw this, I was like, OMG, this really encapsulates what so many Black women experience. So, Marissiko, I just want to ask you if you can explain the life cycle, but also if you could talk a little bit about what prompted you and Dr. Wells to even create this.
Absolutely. Yeah. So Dr. Jen Wells and I have known each other since we were graduate students. So we really grew up as professionals together right out of undergrad. And so we have seen each other and worked alongside each other when both of us were sort of entering the workspace and, going through different jobs, going through different experiences, having different types of supervisors. We've shared stories over the years. And earlier this year, I think it was this year, right? Or at the end of last year, I can't remember the specific date. There was such an explosion of conversation happening online around Black women being in toxic spaces and not being valued. And we unfortunately saw Dr. Claudine Gay, what happened with her at Harvard. We saw the really, really unfortunate circumstance with Dr. Bonnie Kandia Bailey, who took her own life. And we had already sort of created a model for a previous joint consulting job that we had. And we were like, I was like, Jen, I think that we really need to create something specifically about what's happening right now. I think we already have the groundwork there. Why don't we try to make something that really describes what we see so many Black women going through and just draw from our own experiences? And when I tell you, we sat down and in less than an hour, we had this graphic up. I mean, it was just pouring out. Like we were just like, yep, organization, yep, this, that happened. I mean, it was so easy for us to put this together, unfortunately, because we had countless experiences from our own jobs or things that we had witnessed from other Black women. And so that's kind of what brought us to making this this graphic. And I won't take too much time because I would love for us to, just kind of go back and forth in conversation about it. But really, we put it into this cycle that really starts at the recruitment and onboarding phase, really talking about what we all know we experience early on. You see some of those red flags, but you just try to still have a good, you still try to have a good perspective, although you might be experiencing microaggressions and tokenization in the recruitment and onboarding process. And as you go into the job trying to be optimistic, you start to experience those additional, challenges around your expertise being discounted, around, taking on leadership roles to help support other marginalized people, marginalized experiences in the workplace. And you're not getting compensated for that. No one is giving you any extra bonus points or leadership opportunities because of that. And then maybe as a result of you challenging the status quo, you are being questioned. Your legitimacy, your expertise is being questioned. And it's really, we had to talk about misogyny in here because of the fact that it's oftentimes both a gendered and race issue. It's coming from the specific intersection of being Black and being woman, that oftentimes we would see that maybe some of our other counterparts who are not Black or who are not women are not encountering those same challenges. And so obviously that leads to burnout. That leads to you maybe speaking up or you silencing yourself because you just are exhausted, you're burnt out. And as a result, you're getting tone policed. And tone can happen to Black women particularly. And this happened to me in a couple circumstances where I actually choose to pull back and I'm still being tone policed because my silence is still making people uncomfortable. My silence is still coming off intimidating, even though I'm doing my best to be a good team player, right?
Yeah.
And so even
Marissiko, can I say something right quick?
Please.
Okay, so like that, I'm so glad you said that because I think many of us have received the message that we're intimidating in the workplace. And I think many of us already tone police ourselves when we're in the workplace. So we watch our tone, we watch how the email is, we reread the email, we do revise the email, all this stuff. So it's extra emotional labor. And when we think about all the self-assessment that we do, people are still intimidated by us because of their own deep-seated insecurities and their own their racism and sexism, all those other things. But for us, we're trying to make logical sense of it. We're thinking, wait a minute, this is a job. I want to do well. I need this job. And so we keep going through this mental gymnastics and it becomes mentally exhausting. So I just want to highlight that. Yeah.
Absolutely. And one thing that I always talk about, particularly with this model is, I have like a naturally very bubbly, very, very friendly personality. I'm the person who can make friends with anybody in any space, any time or day. And I found that even I was being sort of villainized in certain moments and seen as intimidating and seen as, and I realized no matter how we contort ourselves as Black women, someone will always project that angry Black woman onto you, no matter how friendly you try to be, no matter how kind or gentle. And so that's ultimately what the biggest challenge is with this cycle, is that you go through this process of trying to be a good team player and trying to, validate everything, bring the evidence, bring the good sport energy. And no matter what, you can't win and you're burnt out from it. And so that's how we got to this last stage when we realized, because we were sort of looking at creating a model at first. And we decided this needs to be a cycle because there's no exit. There's no exit. You either exit because you were pushed out or because you were exhausted and had to leave, or you have to stay because you have no other options. And so you grin and bear it, you pull back, act your wage. I love that one. Or the quiet quitting, which is you're just doing the bare minimum. But really, even if you try to go to another organization, the reality is you can anticipate the same cycle happening over again.
And the fact that it is cyclical and that it's so pervasive, I think it gives a sense of being helpless and hopeless, that all jobs are toxic, that I will have the same experience no matter where I go. So I might as well stay with the devil I know than a devil I don't know. So some women, Black women, may stay in these very toxic work environments because they think that it is, what they say, safe, but it's not safe. It is not safe. There's nothing safe about it. But we've deluded ourselves that we're comfortable. We may be comfortable with what to expect, but you're not really comfortable. You're getting sick. All these things are happening. And so I think that's one big hurdle. The other big hurdle is once you get to the next job, that now you've carried all that garbage and baggage to the next job. So it's like PTSD. You're hyper vigilant. You're looking around you. You're always on guard. So you're carrying all that stuff with you, and you never had a chance to process it. So just think from job to job to job to job, that you're carrying that from job to job to job. And you said a few things I want to follow up to. You said that often Black women are put in extra leadership positions without the extra compensation. And they'll do this thing. It's like this tricky mind that they do. They're like, oh my God, you're so talented. We just love your perspective and everything you say. We really need your expertise. And so we step in and we do it. We show up, we show out. Just like with this election, we showed up, we showed out. Okay. Other people who are doing their thing, mediocre at best, but we showing up and showing out. And what happens? We're coming to save other people and nobody's saving us. Nobody. The other thing that I appreciate that you said too was, and this is a cyclical, I'm so glad you laid it out like this, that is cyclical. There's no way of winning. There's no way of winning. And so I think at a certain point now for us Black women during this time, so many of us are like, we're done. We're done. We're done trying to save anybody. We're done. Don't call us to come save you. No, we're done. We're going to prioritize ourselves. And whatever you might say about us, we're going to just center ourselves, because for so long, ever since we've been in this dang country, we've been saving people. And so I think this is a really pinnacle time for us as Black women to really center ourselves now. So Dr. Marissiko, thank you so much and you and Dr. Wells for creating this Black Women Life Cycle, Employee Life Cycle. So April, as a type A++, a recovering type A++, okay, can you please, based upon this life cycle, can you kind of walk us through your own professional journey and your eventual liberation?
Yeah, sure. So first of all, as I was reading this, I just felt like a tightness, because this is okay. Let me get together. Like just seeing it and okay, let me get to it. Anyway, this is really good.
Can I say something, April, before you do that? Okay. Your reaction was probably similar to my reaction. So it was, oh my God. It is so, it's so, I don't even know. It's so, it's like, it's so true. It's
Right,
true, right?
right.
It's so hitting the truth.
Hmm.
And it's so disturbing
Yeah.
how pathological the experience is for us in the workplace. That's what I was trying to say. It's
Hmm.
so
Yeah.
pathological and dysfunctional for so many of us in the workplace. And we're just trying to do our jobs. We're coming in, we're just trying to do our jobs, we're trying to do the best, but we don't realize that people are coming for us as we're trying to do the best at our job. So I don't know if for you had a similar reaction. It was like, oh my God, like it's right
Right.
there.
This is
And
it. Yeah, this
it's
is my life.
yeah,
This is my experience at so many jobs,
yeah.
even down to like being retaliated against and pushed out. And I went out on mental health leave for 2 of those jobs. Like, I think that's why I was struggling with the words, because it's like my brain and my eyes, like they could not, like, it was like, do not compute, because me looking at this is representative of a lot of the trauma that I endured. These are my emotions that I felt. Just
Mhm.
like maybe this time it'll be different.
Mm,
Or as you mentioned, being like, well, you know, who else is going to do this? They don't, I'm the only Black person there. So I'm, the token Black person, but who else is going to run the ERGs?
mhm,
Plural in my case.
mhm,
Who
mhm.
else? Like, I was an executive, so I was the sponsor of, the whatever African Americans at, or, Blacks in, whatever. And of course, in my industry, especially at my level that I was, it's typically white male oriented.
Mhm.
And if there is a person of color, see how I said that? It's like just going to be one, because you don't want too many there. And
Right.
as you mentioned, we are contorting. It's like we're intelligent, but we don't want to be, like too intelligent. Because again,
Mhm,
like they may view it this way. Like essentially, we are doing all these things to control others' perceptions of us and to preempt, every permutation and combination of what potentially could happen. So that's where a lot of our energy is going. And
mhm,
then when you are dealing with, I know for me, I did not feel wanted. Like I knew they didn't want me there.
mm.
So I'm just gonna kind of sit back and, you know, as you mentioned, how many what did you say? You're silent, but I've had like, so I received some feedback, and this is a teachable moment. So I just want to give
Oh,
you a little bit of feedback. Apparently you were making some people uncomfortable in the meeting. Like there's been times when I haven't said anything, when I've spoken up, when I maybe I wanted to speak up and I didn't. So by not saying anything, I meant like when I said I haven't said anything, like I didn't even say anything for you to like have this, teachable moment. And then there's times when I don't say anything because I know if I do, like I'm not wanted there. I am not seen as a competent and capable woman or Black woman. I am, the diversity hire or the token. And again, with it being mostly white men, like one time earlier in my career, one of the gentlemen that I worked with called me little lady. Just sit this one out, little lady. I'm like, yeah. So those feelings are there. But when you talk about like in my experience, again, it's that dance. You don't want to raise your voice, but you don't want to laugh too much because we are completely overqualified. You've got
we
2,
would have
3,
got the
4
job.
degrees to their GED, right? As you call the mediocre white man. So, and we have experience. Yeah,
Yeah.
we may have gotten this role. Maybe it was like a connect or a friend of a friend recommended, but still, they have the jobs that they have many times simply because the world belongs to them.
Mhm.
They move through life that way while we are moving through life trying to make sure that we are making everyone else comfortable while sacrificing our own discomfort.
Yeah.
Not speaking up if somebody's stealing our idea. Like if someone does that, that's a no-win situation. You are feeling the emotions like, how is he just going to sit up here, or her, and sit up here and do this, do that? But you can't speak up for yourself because no one, again, they don't want you there. So no one is really going to be your advocate. The same thing with that tone police. It does get exhausting.
Yeah.
Trying to be everything to everyone and nothing to yourself. Like, it's exhausting. You are doing all these things at the job, doing all these extracurriculars. Again, you may be able to put it on your employee review, but they're not compensating us for that. You know what I mean? Oh, thank you so much. But
after work, working on the weekends. Yeah.
Working these 2-3 jobs, like, oh my goodness, when you went on vacation or when you were out, we had to give your responsibilities to 3 different people, but it's me who's doing it myself. I'm one person. So it takes 3 people. Or when you leave, you find out that they split your job into 2 because it was in fact a role for 2 people. So again, you've got, as mentioned on here, the tone police, the sexism, the racism, are you on green, or you've been on yellow, or, just people watching you. Even as a director, you're watching me, and people that are not even, like, you're a couple rungs down. But again, it's them and then it's us. They see us as less than. So it doesn't matter that like your titles, my titles, we're not even in the same league. They're better than us, And
I'm so glad you said the part about education level, because it doesn't matter your education level. What I've experienced is the further I've gone up education-wise, the more attacked that I've got. And it's like almost colluding, like workplace mobbing. It's like that they collude together. And, what's so important, as you said too, is that they want to use us. They want to exploit our labor. So that's why we got the jobs, because we had to be overqualified to even get the job. We get the job, they want to exploit our labor. And it just reminds me so much of slavery.
Right.
Just like in slavery, they wanted to exploit our labor. So I'm thinking about how this looks now. And Stephanie Perry always talks about fruit from the slavery tree, that a lot of these jobs mirror that. And I want to say one more thing, April, before you go on, that I want the audience to be clear that our experiences can be with white people, but they could be with anybody doing this. It could be another Black person, another Black woman. We're talking about anybody who engages in white supremacist behaviors. And if it's another Black person, it's even more hurtful when that happens. So I have videos about all skin folk and kinfolk. So again, April, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no problem. And I have a personal story about the kind of stifled promotion, except I guess it's like the opposite. So at one point, I was hired to start up a particular team and to raise that team up. And I was good where I was. In the middle of that, oh, you did such a good job. I think I was there maybe like 2 months, maybe max. And they're like, well, you're doing such a good job starting up this team. We need another team started up. So I'm building my team. And now I have to job description, how much personnel, time studies, all this stuff for another team. Then I got that, got that team kind of up and running. I'm still doing my original job. Then someone went out on leave that was hired to start up another team. So of course, oh, April, can you please? You did such a good job on the other ones. So now I'm doing that one. Okay. So the gentleman ended up not working out. So they said, we want you to take this position. I said, no, I'm good where I am. Thank you. People just, my director, and then we have, the top man in our, like the legal and regulatory compliance space. So he reports directly to the CEO. We were at an offsite, and I've told this story before, but we were at an offsite And it was, during a little break, he said, hey, can I, because he flew in, everybody works in the Bay. I'm the only one who worked in the Phoenix office. My team, everyone worked at the San Francisco office and then in Denver. And because they didn't want to deal with traffic, they went to the campus that was closer to the airport. Keep in mind, I'm the only one from Phoenix. Now I got to deal with the hours worth of traffic both ways because you all want whatever. Okay. So I was developing these horrible migraines. I would get nosebleeds. I'm dragging myself into this week-long offsite. So this was like the last day. He said to me, hey, can I talk to you? I said, sure. He's like, hey, I heard that, that you've turned down a couple of times, this position. And I'm like, yeah, I really enjoy my team. I really like what I do. Do you know that white man got so upset and essentially said something else when I stuck my hand up and said, this is too much, because they'll always be like, oh my God, April, thank you so much. Like, let me know if this is ever, I want to make sure that I keep your workload in mind. I want to make sure that I respect your time. So just let me know. And when you do say, hey, this is a bit much, the other time that I went out on med leave, both of them said, in a nutshell, like, you should be grateful for this job. But like, why do you think we have you here? You've received all of this training or certifications or like all this other stuff. And I remember I was sitting down and he was yelling at me. His face was red and I could feel like the spittle hitting my face.
Oh gosh.
Now keep in mind, we're just, how they say, okay, we're going to take like a 10 and come back at, such and such after. So you've got my direct reports. Because again, this was like a leadership offsite. You've got my direct reports, my peers, and he did not slow down on me. So now we have our session again, and I'm having to sit there I can't even describe what I felt on the inside. Like, disrespected is not the word. Like feeling this small. Exactly. And I just remember sitting there like, don't cry, don't let them see you this again, because we have to have that hard exterior. Like we have to be sealed up with these jobs and everybody's because people, of course, like he was screaming at me.
Wow.
I mean, it was just, when I left there, I went to lunch. I remember I called the EAP. I told them what happened. Because at this point I'm crying. Like I'm in my car, I'm crying. And she said, well, you have X amount of hundreds of hours of sick leave. I was like, no, I just need to be off for like a day or two. I just need
April, no, wait. First of all, why'd you have that much sick leave in the first place? What happened? How's that?
The same reason that I lost tens of thousands of dollars at the end of every year, because I didn't use my vacation time.
Wow.
When you take time off, like, even though it's there for you, even though the email may go out, hey, everybody, remember to take your time, it's use it or lose it, you get penalized. I don't know about other people. I only know about me as a Black woman on the job and people that I have coached that they have very similar stories. If we use some of the things that are available to us, we get penalized. We can't take time off. Are you kidding me? Because we got 32 things on our list to do. Wow. God forbid they start to say that we're slacking, because now they really have something. It's just, It's never ending. No matter what you do, the goalposts will always move. I know for a fact there have been Slack chats. There have been emails that accidentally, because you're talking about me, you accidentally loop me in on your email. Just blatant retaliation, racism. I don't know why we say microaggressions, because there's nothing micro about it. So that's why I've had to stay in grin and bear it. I've had to just be like, this is too much. I can't take it. I've quit some jobs, at least with my last two. I had enough sins, like toxic jobs, of course, because I resigned. Okay, on my birthday in April. Okay, but that was not a toxic job, and that's because this version of me went looking for a job. So that's a different story for a different day. But I had enough sense at least to take the sick leave, to at least go on the short term into long-term disability. But this right here is, I am looking at so much just like pain and trauma and sadness, broken relationships because you are always working, not being invited to things, feeling isolation on the job, isolation in your own world because you're unavailable, or like we've talked about before, you come home talking about these people.
Right.
You be telling a story, they'd be like, hold on, was that Danielle?
They know all the names.
Right, because you know Danielle. She
Yeah.
gotta complain about everything. Like you can't, there's nothing that you can do to stop this. Because even if you do go to another job like me, okay, I'm changed. I know what I need to not do, but it's like you just fall in lockstep. That's what you know, and that's what you have to do to survive. So that's why I was at such a loss for words, because I'm seeing like faces, I'm seeing, situations and times like this is real right here. I know that this is a chart and a demonstration, but for me, this is alive. Like this is a lot of my experience.
Yes. So I want to say thank you again, Dr. Marissiko and Dr. Jen Wells, for creating this, because this speaks our truth. And as Black women, people don't like to hear our truth. Or when we start to share our truth, we get the message, oh, that's too much. Just get over it, right? It doesn't really value our humanity. So I'm wondering, Dr. Marissiko, when we think about the election that just passed, and again, Black women being put in a position that you got to save the Democratic Party, you got to save all this stuff, okay? So in what ways have you observed how Black women have jumped into action and how it played out for us during this election cycle?
Wow. Yeah. I mean, there's so many ways that you can make comparisons. And I just want to first go on record to say I don't think that, Kamala Harris's, political approach was perfect by any means. I don't think any Black woman is perfect when they're put in these positions, right? But we're human, just like everybody else. And a lot of times we're not allowed to be human. And so, I think that the first very prime example that many of us are put in is she was put in this position with no time to prep, no time to strategize, no time to build resources, right? Like oftentimes we are called into leadership at the time where the organization knows that they're in a place to fail, knows that they're ready to, they're just setting that person up for a complete failure. And even in the process of Kamala Harris's team having limited time, they still were able to raise so much money, galvanize so many people, very competitive to some of the best election seasons that we've seen, right? And so even still, she was sort of attacked without a fair fight. So that's the biggest piece that I see. I also think, her legitimacy was questioned. As we know, many Black women's legitimacy is constantly questioned. And even beyond, she obviously has all the credentials needed, all the degrees, all those things, experience, right? But even her legitimacy as a Black woman, that was probably the biggest trigger that I would say I had, because I'm like, we live in a country where the one drop rule is literally the number one rule that we go by to create division. And yet somehow somebody was able to weaponize even that. And I'm like, if you put, Barack and Kamala together and you say who meets more quote unquote Black qualifications, we're so quick to say Barack was, the first Black president, but somehow you telling me that Kamala going to a Black college, being an AKA, growing up in Oakland, growing up with her dad who's Black, right? Like all of these things. And there's nothing against Obama, right? It's nothing against Barack Obama, but he didn't have any of those qualifications.
Right.
If we were to line up what makes somebody Black, and I put this in big air quotes, right? And so even that form of questioning legitimacy, I found to be so just problematic. And it's to your point that you said earlier around we're constantly trying to compute and validate and make sense of nonsense, right? We're trying to legitimize the attacks when they're not meant to make sense because they're just complete projections. So so that to me was one.
Dr. Marissiko, can I say something too? It made me think about something. The thing about what her race is, she's Black or not, whatever, which was so ridiculous. What was so insidious about it was other Black people were doing this.
Exactly.
Other Black people started saying, well, she's not even really Black. Oh, well, her ancestors not from America. And I just was watching this unfold. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? Like, we're falling into the okie doke, the whole divide and conquer. We've fallen right into the trap. And they just walk right in. And so the whole thing about her, the thing about her credentials, I thought that was ridiculous. The part about, wait a minute, she got all these different things, and this person, not even mediocre, okay? But it's not even comparable. And the part about, and I just want to give her major props, Vice President Kamala Harris, I want to give you major props because they were coming for her so disrespectful. And she remained composed. She remained on top of it. She had the mask on. And so many of us, I think that's why we're having this reaction to the election, is through this whole cycle, many Black women related to her experience. Many Black women saw ourselves in her, being disrespected, people talking about you, people making character assassinations, people putting you against somebody who's not even at your level, all these things. And again, like you said, set up to fail. Yes.
Yeah. I mean, you said it. And, there were just so many double standards that were so unfair, and yet everybody went along with it. I think the biggest challenge, like you said, with the Black community questioning her Blackness, that was, for me, clearly a Black person in that in Trump's campaign planted that. There's in my opinion, there's no way that a non-Black person would even come up with that. And so yeah, I mean, I'll stop there, but I just think that the expertise being discounted, people, this complete sexist approach of them saying that she slept her way to the top was just completely inappropriate. And we know that in, calling her a DEI hire, I mean, some of this stuff, we see this happening, and I've experienced it. And it's to your point that you made earlier around, the more degrees you get, people are still going to question everything you bring, no matter how qualified you are. And I definitely felt, at different junctures in my career where I do feel like, wow, like I'm being questioned, and I actually went and got the degree and came back, and I'm being questioned even more than I was 2 degrees ago.
Right.
That is clearly, she is so representative and reflective of our experiences in the workplace.
Yeah. And I think too, in relation to the life cycle, I think it's the collective grieving that a lot of Black women are experiencing, and they're talking about it on YouTube right now. The collective grieving, but also the exhaustion. We're tired. We're tired as Black women. Like we rallied and got into action. Like when they were like, okay, we rallied and we got an action, we raised up a whole bunch of money. We started doing all these different things because we were going to save democracy. And what really bothered me was to hear other people who were not Black saying, oh, Black women are going to carry this election over. Oh, Black women are going to show up. And so again, it's like that double message that, okay, yeah, we are good with mobilizing and doing these things, but why is this falling on us to save democracy? And what I do appreciate, what I'm hearing from a lot of Black women, they're saying they're done. Don't come to me to save anything because you didn't come save, you didn't care about us. So let's see how you handle the situation. And guess what? You need to check each other. So it wasn't us. We showed up, we showed out. But you all need to come and check each other. And these blue bracelets, have you all heard about the blue bracelets?
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
I'm sorry.
Girl, if I see a woman with a blue bracelet, if she comes up to me, I don't know what I might do. Okay. So that performative blue bracelet, sis, I know you're not even sis. Girl, you need to check your other
Right.
Black
Right.
women,
Of your people.
Right.
right?
Right.
Who
Because
voted
it's
against
just
their own interests.
Yeah.
right. And it's just, you're when you wear something like that, you're not saying I'm willing to roll up my sleeves and do the work, whether somebody's looking or not. You're saying, look at me, look at me. And
Right.
we're supposed to trust that anyway. We don't
Right.
clearly people were performing one way and went in the ballot booth and
Right.
did something else.
Hello. Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's almost like, oh, I'm safe. Look, I'm with you guys. It's like the easiest way for them to, I guess, assert themselves. But just like it's us as Black women, we've had to put the skin in the game. We've had to labor with. You got to do that too. You got to do
Right.
that too. So I love that Black women like, no, we are prioritizing ourselves. So,
Yes.
ladies, before we shift a little bit, can we talk about, because we've talked a lot about workplace, election, what about societal expectations for Black women outside of that, like in our families, with our friends? We talk about that too. That's a lot of heavy burden for us. Not burden, but it's a lot of
Yeah.
heavy stuff that we carry.
Yeah. Like
Expectations.
we carry the weight of the world on our shoulders. Obviously not the world at all, but in our world, especially if you think about like the more roles you add in your life, the more masks you wear, the more like, you have more movement, more moving parts. As Black women, I think, and I've mentioned this before about the magical Negro. Like, I think white people look at us. I think that it still stems from slavery. We are like the mammy character. Think about it. The mammy, she would bring you in, oh, my baby, in her ample bosom. She took care of the children. She nursed their children
Yeah.
because the white woman didn't want to. So
Right.
we do end up, I think, in the way that, like, historically, and then having it be reiterated throughout just the years in movies and media. And it's almost like, like folk tales, they get kind of passed down. They take, as technology, evolves, they may take different forms, but they always, like, when they announced her, I believe it was July 21st, I believe. And I was on the call as it just kept growing and growing, and just like crying, like, this is so wonderful. But what happened? She had to come in and save like a white man, an old white man who, they should have, I personally believe that they should have just let it go on with this cognitive decline, or maybe he caught COVID again, the vice president can step in, whatever. But yet again, we have another Black woman who is, as we mentioned, having to prove herself, who white men would have to report to. And by that, I mean kind of like the country. The country would have had to report to a Black woman. And I know from personal experience that they don't like that.
Right.
But I know that I'm done. Well, I've been done because I live in beautiful Mexico. Okay. But a lot of my friends, a lot of just the sentiment is like, you know what? Like, let you all figure it out. Because to me, like, those bracelets are like the white women. See, like how you mentioned, it's very performative. It's almost like when people put on TikTok or YouTube or whatever, like when they're giving people money. Just give them the money. Why are you recording it? Why do you need them to be
Make yourself
smiling?
look better, feel better.
Right. It makes them feel better.
Yeah.
And I believe that more and more Black women are tired of making everyone else feel better.
True.
Because what has it served us? They view us one way, of course. If you have children, they're always going to be like, mama, so you got kids getting on your nerves. You may have a spouse, so you have to split your time with the spouse. You've already split it really in half, maybe more than half for your job. You've got boards you sit on. Maybe you're active in church, or like in your case, your sorority or things with your college. And what's left for you?
Yeah.
No. So we're taking things off our collective plates.
Yes, I love it. And so, ladies, I want to ask you both, for Black women, as we think about toxic jobs and releasing ourselves from these expectations, I think a lot has to do with boundary setting.
Mhm.
So can both of you talk about, because, everybody, we've been clear, we went through this life cycle. So how were you able to break out of the cycle? What were the mindset issues or hurdles that you had to go through to liberate yourself from like this cycle? Dr. Marissiko, let's start with you.
Yeah, you know what? Excuse me.
Mhm.
I think that for me, the biggest, and this is, I guess, more of like a life lesson for me. The biggest thing for me is not trying to prove anything to anyone, just letting
Mhm.
go of this idea that I can control how people perceive me. The
Mhm.
reality is all I can do is be the best version of me, treat
Mhm.
people how I know that I need to treat people,
Mhm.
and the rest is in everybody else's hands. And so that for me has been really liberating because I have let go of trying to be, having this anxiety around like, oh, how, how's this email coming off? Or, let me go debrief with this person and see how I came off in that meeting. Like just letting that go because I can't control it.
Right.
The other thing is I feel a lot of safety in making sure that I have receipts for everything. So making
Mm.
sure that I, follow up in an email or follow up in some form where it can later be documented that we had this conversation. We made it clear this is where it was going to end or start, or this, you were going to do that. I was going to do that, just so that I don't, I think relationships are really important, but a lot of times historically, Black women kind of get screwed over when we rely solely on the rapport and relationship that we think we might have with someone.
Mhm.
We have
Yeah.
seen over and over again that people can turn their backs on us, or people can sort of
Yeah.
do something else once other people get involved, right? And so
Yes.
really, still really developing those important relationships with people, but also making sure that it stays professional, that it's
Mhm.
that we still have things documented so that at the end of the day, if you decide you don't like me, if I decide I can't trust you, then we still are operating with some records. So that for me has like been the biggest part. And I think that just more on a personal level, I'm a new mom, I'm a wife, like, I have other things in my life that hold me accountable to making sure that I leave work at 5, I don't open my email on the weekends, I have other social obligations that fill me up and that hold me accountable to making sure that work is not my only identity, right?
Mhm.
It is just
Yeah.
one component that I love it. I'm blessed to do something that I love and not feel like it's work. But at the end of the day, it is work. It is a paycheck. It is
Yes.
transactional. And
Yes.
Mhm.
I have something else that is not that giving me a paycheck and that I actually desire, that I actually want to do. And that's what's actually going to keep me going to be able to make the money that I need to make.
Yes. I love that. Can we talk a little bit more, kind of drill down on what you just said about recognizing that your job is not your identity? I think for a
Mhm.
lot of Black women, their job becomes their identity. So when you meet them, they tell you their name, they tell you their job title, they tell you about what they do with their job. And that it almost feels like a void, or I'm not quite sure, but it gives them a sense of importance in some ways. But there's a danger when we do that, because now we're looking outside of us for external validation instead of
Mhm.
recognizing our own talents and gifts. And we're constantly kind of jump higher and higher and higher because you want this external source to validate your existence. And I think that for some Black women, there might be some unresolved, maybe childhood wounds or other wounds, that they need to feel needed. And so their
Mhm.
job, they may, and I've heard this, if I leave, this place will fall apart. If I leave,
Who else is
they
gonna
won't
do
even know
it?
what to do. Right. Because I'm the one that carries this organization. Like
Yeah.
that diluted way of thinking. But I think it ties into some unresolved issues that we have. And so my hope is, Black women, if you're watching this and you are a Black woman who your job, that's a big part of your identity, I would suggest that you seek therapy. And if you are
Mhm.
in therapy, please talk to your therapist about this, because it's not healthy to do that.
Right.
So boundaries is important. And it's hard to have boundaries when your identity is infused with your job. So thank you for sharing that. And congratulations on becoming a new
Yes,
mom.
baby.
True. And can I just want to just echo something that you said, because I'm really big on mental health. My husband and I are both big on it. We both have individual therapists. We have a marriage therapist. We plan on making sure our child gets it early. And I like to say you don't need to be in crisis to have a therapist. And it has been so helpful because both my husband and I are so ambitious. We have business together. We have our own jobs. We have so many goals that we want to obtain. But at the end of the day, we want to make sure that our jobs are not our identity and that it doesn't interfere with our ability to connect authentically with each other and with other loved ones in our lives. And so I just want to underscore the importance of what you just said, because it is absolutely important to be able to disentangle a lot of those traumas or experiences where the reality is, like me and my husband, for instance, we both are sort of we are big forms of support for different people in each of our individual families. And when we got married, we had to sort of let go because our marriage became the center part, not our roles in our other parts of our family. And so it was hard to sort of accept that that means we also got to create boundaries at work in order to have more energy for each other, right? So I just really want to underscore what you said is just so key and important.
Yes. So boundaries at work, and boundaries sometimes with our family and our friends too, because they're used to us performing in a certain way. But for us, we have to say, wait a minute, this is what I can do. This is what I cannot do. And what you also mentioned, which I appreciate, is that we have choice. Like, we can only control what we're doing, and knowing that we have choice, that we have options too. Because when we're in these jobs, so many times we're like, oh, well, if I leave this job and be homeless. I'm like, how do we go from leave this job to be homeless? How would you wouldn't you try to get another job? Wouldn't you try something else to get money? Like, there's other ways to get money, but it's this mind trip that if we don't work at that particular job, that's the only way we can make money. And that's the only place we can do that type of work. We might love the work, but hate the job. And so I just want to tell Black women that's not true. I used to think the same thing. But that is absolutely not true. So I appreciate what you said. What about for you, April? What were like the mental things you had to process for you to get to a point where you got off this cycle?
Well, as I mentioned, I went out on mental health leave, but it's not like, hey, just so you know, I'm going out. I left. After that offsite, I got in my car. I started it up. I drove out the parking lot. That was it. They had to pack my office up, send my things to me because I never went back. So for me, I always say that I ran off, arguing in OFT, because I could not, it was just too much. The only thing I could do was leave. I had in my video that I said about the 5 things I wish another Black woman would have told me before I quit that good job, I realized that I had an identity crisis. My entire life, I've had benchmarks. In the household, what your parents like and what they don't like. At school, they say, okay, here's the benchmark. You get a bad grade, or in my family, you get an A, you get an A+, and you better not bring home any A-minuses. So we are taught okay, that is my goal that I need to hit. When you're doing extracurriculars and things like that, and to get into a good school, in the college prep track, it's all mapped out for you. The same thing is replicated when you go to, start getting jobs. And then it's replaced in the corporate sphere. It's replaced with your, annual review or the semi-annual performance review. So when I removed that, and then, I forgot church, because we have an entire book to tell us how to be perfect in his sight. Okay. But for me, when all of those things were removed, because now I'm not at work, right? Because work was the issue. I'm working too much. So now I'm not there. I had an identity crisis because I realized that my job was my identity, and that I had been motivating myself by either like negative self-speak, even if I knew they didn't want me there. Now I'm going to prove them wrong. I'm volunteering for the extra work so I can prove that, which right now it's just like, it's so nonsensical, but that was how I felt. And so when we talk about what I went through, like I said, I have my identity crisis. You know how I feel about therapy. Okay, one thing's for certain and two things is for sure. I'm going to tell people to go get them some professional help and to go and get within community with other like-minded, Black women. But for me, I had to. My therapist asked me, tell me who you are without mentioning your accolades, your roles, you as a mother. Like, she just ran down the things and I couldn't answer that. And that's why I made the video, like, who are you? Without all of these things, I could not answer it. So, if Black women are watching this and they're like, dang, I don't know, I can't answer that. That's okay, because I couldn't either. And the thing about boundaries, which are so important, because the way that we end up, I think, in this cycle and it just becoming a part of who we are and what we need, is we have to recognize that who we are at work, it shows up. This lack of boundaries, the way that we interact with people, it shows up in all of our interpersonal relationships. It shows up when we volunteer for things. I know they're ready to ask me to make the peach cobbler. Let me just go ahead and say, okay, for Hattie Mae's homegoing, whatever, building fund combined service, I'm going to go ahead and make the peach cobbler. So I'm volunteering for work. Again, that's part of me preempting and attempting to control people and how they view me, and me not wanting to disappoint people. It shows up in relationships, maybe even with your children. Like, okay, well, I don't, I'm a single mom and their dad's not around, so let me try to overcompensate. That lack of boundaries, if those of you who, even if you're hearing it like, oh my goodness, that's me at work, I want you to just think about those actions and see where they show up in other parts in your life, because that's who we are. And even this, I'll say this and then I'll stop, but the hardest person to get to accept the boundaries and to change their perspective and change the dynamic that they have with us is us.
True.
We have to, that's why, like when I said, I honor the promises and commitments that I made to myself. We could put these boundaries up, say no to people, because I was like a toddler saying no to everybody. No. Like it feels good. There's a lot of power and it feels good when you say no. When you want to say no, but you always previously would say yes. But you can have other people reframe their interactions with you. You can teach them how to interact with you. But are you the one who is honoring your own commit? Have you committed? First of all, have you made commitments to yourself? Have you seen, like, what are my slippery slopes and what do healthy boundaries look like for me? And then have you committed to yourself? Like, I am done. Like, even if it's just like small incremental things, because that's us. Again, we'll volunteer for work because, as you mentioned, now we're not needed. I realized that through therapy, that I did all of that work. I did a lot of things because it made me feel needed. It made me feel like valued. And two things can be true at the same time. I was dealing with some stuff, and these people, this raggedy, double-S toxic job I was at, were taking advantage of me. We're having the microaggressions. We're doing all these things. But that self-awareness, and again, that commitment that you make to yourself to identify where you need to have some serious boundaries.
Yeah.
And just go from there. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think the core of what we're all talking about is the need to choose yourself first. Prioritize yourself first. You can't take care of anybody, even as a mother. You can't take care of anybody if you're not well. And so challenging that one of the societal messages that I used to hear a lot was being selfish. And so I want to say to Black women, when you center yourself, that's not selfish. That's not selfish. You are really attending to yourself and you're honoring yourself. That's not selfish. And so we have to reject that notion that we have to put everybody above us for us to be a good person. That's
Right.
not true. That's not true. Okay. So, ladies, as we're winding down, if there's a Black woman watching this discussion right now and she can resonate with anything we've talked about, the Black woman employee life cycle, she's done. She's like, I'm tired of being a superwoman. I'm tired. I'm done. Okay. What words of wisdom could you offer to her?
Well, I'll just go ahead and underscore, what was just shared so beautifully, which is that you have to prioritize yourself. No one is going to know how to give you what you need better than you. And, I've had to learn this the hard way when I sort of project what people think, what I think people want from me. And then I'm already irritated with them before they even, accept. And it's like I had to go through therapy to realize, no, I'm creating that dynamic. I'm
Yeah.
codependency. So I think really reframing that. And when I honor myself, when I choose myself first, the only people, I mean, I obviously still struggle with it because, I'm still unlearning everything that I've learned throughout my life. But the people who have the biggest challenge with it are people who don't have boundaries themselves. I
True.
find that the people who respect my boundaries and honor my boundaries the best are people who have them themselves and appreciate boundaries themselves. And
Yes.
so those folks really have no problem when I say, hey, I'm not going to be able to make dinner. Hey, I'm not going to be able to do this thing for you. They always accept it. It's the people who have historically benefited from taking advantage of you that have the biggest challenges. And those are the folks where you want to sort of rewire that dynamic anyway.
Yes.
So I would say, no, similarly, when we think about this election, nobody is going to save Black women but Black women. Nobody's going to vote in our interests but ourselves. It's the same thing on the individual level. No one, whether it's your husband, your parent, your child, your supervisor, no one is going to everybody can love you and support you, but nobody is going to take care of you in that intimate, important way, in the way that you can. So give yourself the break. And it's not just getting the bubble bath, going and get the mimosa. It's an everyday practice. It's an everyday practice. I wake up in the morning and I've been on this journey of like, I don't open social media for the first, few minutes. I wake up, I say, thank you, God, for waking me up. I may go get my baby, spend a few minutes with him, but I take those first few moments just to be in the presence of myself and God and who my love. And that's it. And that's the boundary that I created for myself. But that's at least one small thing that I do every single day to ground myself, because that may be the only moment in the entire day that I get just for myself. And so I always like to emphasize that we can't just do these one-off, self-care things. They have to be daily things that we do every single day, because that also disciplines us to create the boundaries that we need in every other category.
Yes, that was so beautifully stated. So I love what you said. People who often have problems with our boundaries have their own issues with boundaries. So that doesn't mean, because people are going to test you. So you set a boundary and they're going to try even harder, but we have to just be firm and no, I'm not going to do that. There might be a fallout, but be firm with that. The other part about grounding ourselves every day, in full transparency, like since the election, I've just been feeling like discombobulated in many ways, and just like having really profound grief reaction. I've been talking about this on YouTube, that it's like the individual grief, but it's a collective grief for Black women about what we've gone through. And some days I'm like, oh my God, like it's just, I don't look at a whole bunch of news. Like I'm very mindful of that, not a whole bunch of social media. But what's challenging is when I go to bed, my mind is thinking, I'm trying to like, no, don't think about it, don't think about it, don't think about it, right? Finally go to sleep. But then when I wake up, I feel like I'm waking up to a nightmare because of the election results. And so I have to, just like you said, I have to get grounded and I have to say, okay, God, like that's interference. I'm thankful for this day. Please lead me in a direction you want me to go. And it really helps me center myself, because if not, we're all wrapped up and we get wrapped up in the fear and the unknown and oh my God. And, and I was like, you know what? For me to make it, to survive and do well, I have to stay grounded, stay centered on what is my purpose, what direction
Mhm.
God want me to go in. And yeah, I'm going to be aware of what's happening around me, but I can't become consumed with it. Like
Right.
all that angst and all that kind of stuff, I have to find ways to rechannel that because that's not healthy for me to hold that in so much. So I'm like, okay, I need to be talking on YouTube more because I need to get this stuff out of my system. It's not healthy. It's not healthy. So thank you. What about for you, Pearl? What would you say to a Black woman watching us right now?
Well, super fast. To echo what. I don't want to mess your name up. Say your name.
Marissiko.
Marissiko. Okay, thank you. I can't stand people messing up my name. So I'm very similar to what Marissiko was saying. My therapist told me that as you're starting to make these changes, as you're starting to establish boundaries, to reinforce and enforce those boundaries, take inventory of people's reactions
Ooh.
to this. Like some of my friends were like, girl, it's about time. Oh my goodness. Good for you. I'm so happy for and proud of you. Let me know if I can support or things like that. But then I had some people in my life that they felt some type of way about it because that was now disrupting the dynamic that we had where they benefited. I gave, they took. And of course, they didn't want me to get to have any boundaries, to start to see things in a different way, to step back
Yeah.
on that interaction. So that's one thing that I always tell Black women. When you start making these improvements in yourself, when you start seeing things differently, thinking in ways you haven't thought of before, take inventory of people's reactions to you. Another thing, again, I'm going to say, get you some professional assistance. There's plenty of, if you have that good job anyway, unfortunately, you might need to use them benefits. Get on the EAP program. Like, get someone else for you to get these things out of your system. That is not your friend. That's not your mother, Nene, and them. No, they know you. They're biased. Speak to someone who, they will hear what you're saying that you can't hear because you're, in the middle of it. And then also, again, get in community. Unfortunately, the people closest to you are typically going to be the ones that, are going to be speaking, either projecting or like projecting fear.
Yeah.
Maybe, it makes them get jealous or envious, or maybe it, again, has them thinking about what does this mean for us, or what does this mean for me, not considering us in that dynamic. So yeah, get in community with Black women who are thinking like you, who've been where you've been, we understand the complicated nuances, the emotions that are involved in really making a life change, to start focusing on yourself, and that are going to root for you and cheer for you when you win and lift you up when you're questioning all your life decisions. But yeah, that's what I would say. You are not alone.
Yeah.
And I know you may feel alone, but you're not alone.
Yes. Yes. And the importance of being in community, and be mindful of people around you and how they're responding to setting boundaries. If they're having a negative reaction, that tells you something right there. That's some good data. The other thing is, as you mentioned, we have to be mindful of people in our circle who may be projecting their fears onto us. So when we're talking about leaving a toxic job and they're saying, girl, don't leave that job. That's a good job. Those good benefits. What you doing? You're going to end up homeless. Like, you have to say, wait a minute. Okay. I'm the only one living my life. And if I'm waking up every day in a dread, I'm crying on my way to work, I'm crying leaving work, I'm in the bathroom at work crying,
Yes.
I'm talking about the job all the time, I'm getting sick, you have to prioritize yourself over what they're saying to you, and be mindful of boundaries with them. Don't tell them about your job anymore, or don't tell them about your plans to leave. And both of you talk about therapy. As a therapist, I love to hear that. So a therapist who has a therapist, okay? So for us to also know that therapy can help us identify what are some of the root causes contributing to why I'm still at this job. How do I work through that and work on an exit plan too? So don't feel like you have to do one over the other. You could do both, okay? And I have resources for you. It's all in the description section, so check it out. So ladies, as we are winding down, and then we're going to read the community chat, Can you both share ways that you support or offer support to Black women or services that you offer and how you can be contacted? Dr. Marissiko, I'll start with you.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, so like I mentioned, I have Greer Consulting, a firm that my husband and I, run, and we primarily we do a lot of executive coaching. We also work with organizations to, do qualitative assessments, do educational workshops. We do a lot of stuff working with leadership to help them to strategize better. And I would just say also, just on a personal note, I'm really, really big on community. I'm really big, particularly around supporting Black women. And so I'm always sort of doing like on weekly dialogues with other Black women. My husband and I also do ongoing dialogues with other groups of married couples, because we're really big on mental health and community. So we're constantly trying to think about different ways that we can create space for ourselves to process alongside other people who are in the same seasons and chapters in life, and ways that we can pour into other people who are going through different moments. And so that's something that we do more just in our own time, on our own, just for personal interest. But we also, like I mentioned, we have Greer Consulting, where that's more of a service. And so if there are folks who are like, hey, my job can really benefit from bringing in someone who can talk about these issues in this particular way, because we all know that a lot of folks do DEI. I'm not trying to toot my own horn with me and my husband, but we've been doing this for 15 plus years, and not just because we happen to be Black, but because we have degrees and specific areas that we have focused on in this, specific area of expertise for a long time. So we are DEI practitioners through and through, and we are not afraid to have the hard conversations. So yeah, I'll stop there.
Tell me the website so I can put it on the screen.
Oh, greerconsulting.org is our website, and Greer Consulting on Instagram as well, and LinkedIn.
So I will have all of this information description section, but I also want to put that on the screen as well, so you can contact for resources. And April, can you please share about services that you offer and how you can be contacted?
Sure thing. So I have my YouTube channel, and I created a playlist. I think it says like "Take Off the Cake." You'll see the little cake. Oh, sorry, I'm staring at some cake over here. Take off the cape, and you'll see the emoji of like a Black superwoman, and it has those videos. Actually, all three of the videos, including the people pleasing video that I referenced today. And you can subscribe to my email list, and I think Dr. Kimani, I sent you the links in our private chat. And also something that I have created based on my journaling, based on some exercises I did with myself and have done with my clients. I created a program that's called Choose You. And I created that specifically for Black women who they're done conforming to all the expectations. They are ready to put themselves first, have that life that's centered solely around them, and not feel the guilt, shame, and condemnation. And we essentially are covering 5 very transformative areas where you're going to become a Black woman who has destroyed the cape. You have a life, again, centered around you and your joy and your needs. You will feel liberated and unstoppable, and you are going to have boundaries that protect not only your peace, but your sanity. And then on December 14th, I am doing a workshop. It's called But First Boundaries, because that's the first thing we have to do is find some boundaries, again, that work for our lives. So we are going to identify some healthy boundaries that we can start using the day of the workshop and really build out that roadmap to start being able to see, again, taking the inventory on those relationships, seeing some things that you say yes to that you don't want to do. And, just an introduction, because Choose You is actually step 2, Choose You. You don't have to make a name. So, but first boundaries, and then step 2, Choose You. So if you want to be notified of when I'm going to start to open spaces for the workshop, you can join my email list. And if you are interested in the Choose You program. I gave Dr. Kimani a code to get 25% off, and we are going to start on November 30th. So I'm excited about that. But yeah.
I'll put the discount code on the screen. I'll also put a description section. Okay, everybody?
Thank you.
Okay. So let me put that here. Okay. And April, don't you have something really big coming up too?
Oh boy, Dr. Kimani.
Yeah, she has something really big coming up, and I've already invited her to come on the channel when she launches it.
Okay.
It's something super exciting.
All right.
What is that?
Are you talking about the guilt-free luxury? Is that what you're talking about? Okay, so quickly, I was on Stephanie Perry's channel. What was it? Last Saturday. So not yesterday, but last Saturday. And I told her, about a retreat that I'm going to do at my home because it looks like a resort. And when I got it, I just saw Black women luxuriating. And, I said, hey, if you want to know more about it, I briefly described it. And I said, go ahead and hit the website and, it'll send me an email. Dr. Kimani, I got hundreds. I don't mean 100. I got hundreds of emails from Black women, all the way from, hey, add me to the list, to, bringing me near tears. It just seemed like they kept increasing more and more. And I'm just like, my Black sisters, okay, the Black women, we are tired and we need a respite. We need to go somewhere where it is 100% about us, where we have the luxury to do as much or as little as we want, to have people wait on us hand and foot. So I am let me not say getting ready. I'm working with some planners, Black women, of course, to bring guilt-free luxury, the retreat, to San Miguel de Allende. I know that it's going to be a large undertaking, but I only have 3 guest bedrooms here. So it would be like my great-great-grandchildren will be talking about, come on to the soul house. This is the urn, grandmama's urn. But, I think that it's important. So thank you, Dr. Kimani, for strongly suggesting it. But based on,
I called everybody. I called April after I saw her on Stephanie Perry. I was like, girl, first of all, like, how big? Because we need more than a few women at your house. Okay, this needs to be a larger event because Black women are hurting right now, and we need rest, and we need community, and we need to be celebrated, and we need to reconnect to our joy. So I was like, girl, can you do something bigger than a few people? Okay, so April will be on again to tell you about the retreat and when it drops and when you can register and all that kind of stuff. Okay. So keep an eye out for April to join us again. So everyone, I'm going to read the community chat and then we're going to wind down. Okay. So I have both of the information in the description section and also on the screen. Okay. So good evening, sister girlfriends. I'm excited for another informative episode. Hope you are too. Thank you for joining. Good evening. Let's see. Hi, Ladies Pro. I found you through Sandra's Lack to Legacy YouTube channel, one of our other sisters. Yes, Sandra. Hey, Marissa. Agreed, double standards and moving targets, speaking facts. The intimidation is so real. All we are trying to do is our very best. And that can become problematic because we are seen as doing too much. Yep. When others lack skills and are comfortable with being mediocre. Yes. And you know what? Sometimes they attack us because they're concerned, because I call those people the real imposters. They're concerned that we're going to outshine them and other people will see that they're mediocre at best. And it gives them a way to distract them from their own mediocrity. So that's true. That's true. Yes, the leadership and no increase in money. Hi, ladies. I love this dialogue. Thank you. Good evening. Yep, mental health leave. Good evening. Yes, this graphic resonates with my 30 plus year work history. Yes, true. My female boss does that, constantly disrespecting and marginalizing me and the presence of my reports and undermining my positional authority. Yeah, I'm sorry to hear that. I get penalized all the time for using my vacation time. Oh my God.
I'm telling you. Yeah.
They talk about the Black woman's life cycle is on point.
Yeah.
But yes, everybody, please give this video a thumbs up so YouTube successes to other Black women. These ladies are sharing their personal stories respectfully. Let's see. That point is so key. Not allowed to be human. Absolutely great event. Like everyone knows their ancestry, but question hers. Shaking my head. Yes, so ridiculous. The residual effects of psychological warfare is real. We internalize the colonizing strategies to divide and destroy. Yes, it's never good enough. Many degrees, and yet still with nothing much to say. We prefer strong Negro women such as Cynthia McKinney, who stood up to the Israel lobby. Her in the White House is closer to what repair looks like. I might tell them to shove that blue bracelet up somewhere where the sun doesn't shine. I didn't want to hear thank you for your service last week. Yeah, like that is so condescending. Like, oh, I got my bracelet, look, sis. Or thank you for your service. No, Anthony Fauci has degrees and still lied about early treatment protocol. I don't know if I want to read that. Okay. Happy Sunday. Y'all nudged me back into my senses. I almost autopilot responded yes to a charitable ask, asking Christmas for a local family in need. These people don't even like my kind, okay?
Oh, ma'am, no.
And I'm in my Angela Bassett walking away from a burning car mode. I choose me. It's a no for me now. I notice less phone calls or texts. Also learn how to trust and saying yes to better, more deserving people. It's our responsibility to enforce boundaries with others because they only do what is allowed. I set boundaries and I see myself clearly day by day. Yes, timing will test you. I held a fresh boundary pretty firmly, bent, didn't break, to the face of someone's medical crisis hitting. Suddenly another savior, a Black woman, of course, showed up to help, shaking my head, LOL. I'm undecided if I attend a movie premiere that I took part in the day before my birthday next week. Yes, that's why I'm not going. Some won't leave because of the pay cut. Okay, I just have to say something. Money, you can find money somewhere else. I'm telling you, you can go to another job, you can do these things, right? And you might need to find other ways to have multiple streams of income. I want us to be mindful as Black women that we don't sacrifice our health for a so-called good job. And I'm quoting Stephanie Perry, who said, a job is not a good job if it's harming you. And if you're accessing those so-called good healthcare benefits, the job is making you sick, that's not a good job, okay? Also pray to discern when someone is loving you despite yourself and delusional thinking due to programming. We need, okay, I'm not going to read that. I don't know what's happening. Okay. Let's see. Okay. Tell your IGs again, ladies. What's your IGs again?
My Instagram is Greer Consulting, at Greer Consulting. I also, if you're interested in some of the sort of healing circles, conversations that I do, you can follow me at Marissiko, my first name, at Marissiko. And you'll see a lot of me talking about love and relationships and things like that. Because I think that I just have to say, I think that that is so important that we find ways to experience love, not just romantically, but from our family, from our friends, outside of the workplace, similar to what you were saying around removing work as the place where we feel the most love or respect or desire, because people have to respect us in that capacity. If we can get fulfilled in love in other places in our life and accept love in other places in our life, then that becomes less of a challenge.
Yeah. And I think that my hope is that from this whole experience, lessons learned, one of the lessons learned is that we need to love each other as a community, or we need to uplift one another. And so I love what you're doing. That's really incredible. So thank you for sharing that. So everybody, I'll put that information on the screen. And April, we're trying to get her back on Instagram, everybody. But she is on YouTube. So check her out, Positively Prill. Okay.
That's my IG handle as well.
Okay.
It's on my Q4 24.
She's gonna be more present on IG. Yes.
Okay.
It took facing a very serious health crisis that forced me to into medical leave to question why I would want to return to that toxic work environment.
Mhm.
In retrospect, the place literally almost killed me. That's exactly what we were just talking about.
Mhm.
Amen. Let's see. Oh, yes. So we're talking about having their retreat at a hotel. So, girl, they
Yeah.
already like, what? Okay, how are we going to make this happen? This has been great. I forwarded the link to several sisters. Thank
Oh
you
my
so
God.
much. And everyone, as you're watching this, give this a thumbs up, but also share this video with other Black women because community is so important. And Black women, we are in need of healing, especially
Mhm.
right now. So please share this video with other Black women. Sisters, thank you all. I realize that Goliath, yes, in lowercase, it's not all mine alone. I'm in so much pain from employee lies, accusations, character demeaning by Black and white and more. Yep.
Mm.
Yeah. I know I have Jehovah God, but honey, when I say it's difficult surrendering to God, it is. I wasn't built for this, but I know I earned this. Imposter syndrome at its best, from your own, the other, it hurts, but I have to keep going. I definitely created my identity around my profession. I'm still grieving not being there. Yeah. And
Mhm.
that might be helpful for you to check out in therapy. Okay. The grief
Yeah.
process. Let me see. Plus punishment with no resolution. Okay. Okay, everyone. So I read the whole chat. Okay. So I want to say to my guests again, I'm so appreciative to you, Dr. Marissiko, and you and your colleague, Dr. Wells. Thank you so much for creating this Black Women Employee Life Cycle. I think it speaks our truth so
Mhm.
beautifully. So thank you so much for sharing that. And ladies, as you see this, it might relate to you on so many different levels. I love the work that you're also doing in the community. I think that's beautiful. And Prill, I'm your coach from the sideline. I'm your coach from the sidelines to support you because you have so much to give to us as Black women. And I
Mhm.
appreciate you being so vulnerable on my YouTube channel, talking about your story, and everyone, I've done previous videos with April as well. So you can check out those videos. So everyone, again, thank you so much for tuning in. Share this video with at least 2 other Black women. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. Subscribe to Pril's channel. Check out Dr. Marissiko. Check out everything that Prill is offering. Check out what I'm offering in the description section. There's so many resources for us Black women. I just want you to know that. There's so many resources for you, even if you feel stuck. You're not, it might feel that way, but there's so many Black women out here to help you. Okay.
Mhm.
So everyone, I will see you later. Panelists, if you guys can stay on.
All
Bye.
right. Okay. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.